Hey there, I know you're on a journey from grief to growth, just like I am, and you may be looking for tools to help you live a more soul aligned life. Well, head over to my Grief to Growth store. It's your one stop shop for inspiration, for healing, and for transformation. Inside there, you're going to find some free resources to help you get started. You'll find guided meditations to calm your mind and reconnect with your spirit. You'll find signed copies of my book, Gems of Healing. You'll find my brand new Oracle deck to help you tap into daily divine guidance. And there's some powerful mini courses designed to fit in your busy life and move you forward one gentle step at a time. So whether you're deep in grief, seeking spiritual growth, or just ready for a reset, there's something waiting for you right now. Just go to grieftogrowth.com/store, grief numeral 2 growth.com/store, and start exploring. Close your eyes and imagine. What if the things in life that cause us the greatest pain, the things that bring us grief, are challenges? Challenges designed to help us grow, to ultimately become what we were always meant to be. We feel like we've been buried, but what if, like a seed, we've been planted? And having been planted, we grow to become a mighty tree. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes to this way of viewing life. Come with me as we explore your true, infinite, eternal nature. This is Grief to Growth, and I am your host, Brian Smith. Hey there, guys. I'm Brian Smith, and whether this is your first time joining me or you're a longtime listener, I want to welcome you to Grief to Growth. This show is all about exploring life's deepest questions, who we are, why we're here, and what comes next. It's a journey through grief, through healing, and through transformation. Together, we look at how to live more fully by understanding the connection between this world and the next. And today's guest is someone who brings profound insight and divine wisdom to these very questions. She also happens to be a very long-time dear friend of mine. Her name is Reverend Sue Frederick. Sue is a best-selling author. She's a master numerologist. She's an angel intuitive. She's a unity minister, and she's a spiritual guide. Sue has spent decades helping people navigate through pain and loss through a higher spiritual lens. And her latest book is called The Angel's Guide to Ascension. And it's a groundbreaking guide filled with channeled messages, sacred teachings, and real-life stories that call us to rise above the chaos of our world and embrace our true identities as angels in human form. So in our conversation today, we're going to explore what it means to angel up, what it means to move from suffering to empowerment, and to align with the divine guidance that surrounds us every day. We'll hear how Sue's own life experiences shaped her path, and we're going to dive into practical tools that she shares for connecting with angels, for interpreting signs from beyond, and with starting your own ascension journey beginning right now. So whether you're feeling lost, you're spiritually curious, or you're deeply ready for transformation, this episode is going to be a powerful reminder that you are never alone and that you are more divine than you may know. And when you're done listening, make sure you join us at grieftogrowth.com/community to continue the conversation there with me and like-minded people. So with that, I want to welcome Sue to Grief to Growth.
Oh, it's so great to see you again, Brian.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Sue, as always. And I want to tell people you sent me a copy of the book and of the study guide. They're awesome. I love them. I think they're really, there's practical advice in there. I like that. It's easy to read because sometimes things can be, especially when we're going through difficult times, things are too complicated. It can be kind of confusing. So great job on the book and congratulations.
Well, thank you. That was my goal, was that it would be, like a little book that you just pick up when you're struggling. And I even have people telling me they just open it to a page and read it and it uplifts them, and these are certainly hard times for a lot of us with conflict and all kinds of fear that's happening in our world. So we all need a little guide that we can just kind of pick up, read a few pages, and feel better, feel elevated in our frequency.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about angels, because there's a lot of confusion or a lot of different thoughts about angels, what angels are. Some people say angels have never been human. Some people say angels have been human. You talk about us becoming angels. So what is an angel and how do we become angels?
Well, the way I have learned from the higher beings is that, of course, there's the God source, which is the loving flow of unconditional love that runs our universe. And then there are spirit guides who counsel us, who help us create our life plan. There's a council of elders who answers our questions about why we're here, why we're suffering. Then there are the angelic beings. And the angelic beings live in the realm closest to the God source. They don't really like to come to earth. They prefer being perched above it where they can help and heal humans. Their primary job is to help humans when humans are in pain or lost or struggling. They
Hmm.
come with loving, nurturing, comforting, healing energy, different from the way a counsel guide might come and give you advice, or a departed loved one shows up in their own personality, making you laugh or something. The angels show up and just love on us. And yes, some of them choose to come down and incarnate on earth. And the reason for that is that they see how hard we're struggling here, especially now. And they're saying, if we incarnate on earth and we hold on to our angelic wisdom, which is the hard part down here,
Hmm.
then we're going to be able to help humanity by standing side by side with souls who are in pain. So, yes, some souls come from the angelic realm and incarnate here.
Yeah. Now you've been on before, so I know, and I've known you for years, so I know your story. But for people that don't, tell people how you got to be where you are today.
Well, I was in my 20s, teaching Outward Bound. I was all about being strong. I lived in Colorado. And remember in the 1970s when people would go do these outdoor extreme courses to develop their confidence and their strength. Well, a course like that had changed my life and given me confidence in my early 20s. So then I became an instructor and I was guiding people through the mountains, feeling very invincible, climbing
Yeah.
14,000-foot peaks and leading groups there. And I was loving rock climbing, all these things. And I was in love with this beautiful mountain climbing man named Paul Frederick. And we were young in our 20s, and suddenly he had a few stomach problems, was diagnosed wrongly for a while, and then finally diagnosed with colon cancer. And he spent a year of terrible suffering, and I cared for him at home with hospice help. And then he died in my arms. But all of that had a spiritual component to it that changed my life forever. Me communicating with him in spirit, even seeing his spirit lift out of his body. He had a very conscious death where he called me to his side when I was sleeping on the floor in the hospital room, exhausted. He'd been in a coma, and he, in a dream, said, it was a vision. He said, "Get off the floor. You said I could die in your arms. I'm not trapped in the body. Come over here and hold me." And I walked over and held him, and he took a beautiful, peaceful sigh, so loving and lifted beautifully out of his body. And I got to witness that. It was such a gift from Paul. And once you walk through something like that, you can't ever see this physical life in the same way. So that really launched me. I was 29, turning 30. All my friends were getting married, having babies, and having careers. And I was going, well, wait a minute, how does all this work? Who am I? Why am I still here? Why did he suffer? And where did he go? And those are the questions that once we start asking, our beloveds and the angels lift us up to learn and to remember who we are.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, you know me, I'm Brian, but you may not know I've been part of IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, for over 8 years. I've attended, I presented, and I've witnessed firsthand how life-changing this community can be. Now, whether or not you've had a near-death experience, IANS is for anyone who's ever asked the big questions. What happens when we die? Why are we here? What does it mean to live fully now? This year marks 50 years since the birth of near-death studies. To honor that, IANS has launched the Chrysalis campaign, an effort to grow the organization so that it can continue bringing these powerful messages to the world. If you join IANS at the supporting level or higher, or donate $100 or more, you'll receive a beautiful limited edition commemorative mug as a thank you. But more importantly, you'll be part of something truly meaningful. Visit IANDS.org, IANDS.org, and click Give to support this vital work, because the more we understand death, the more deeply we live. Yeah, well, I know you've had several challenges in your life, and this is, I guess, kind of help open you up to communicate with the other realm. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. In fact, I've had 3 shared death experiences that I talk about where Paul and then my best girlfriend Chrissy died the following year, and we grew up together. She was my best girlfriend. She died of leukemia and came to me the night she was dying. I didn't know she was dying. I thought she was in remission. And all night she was with me, making me laugh and flying me around the country, seeing our friends. And I woke up laughing, going, wow, I was with Chrissy all night. And then I went, oh my gosh. And I called her mom, and her mom said that she had crossed in the night. So Chrissy had come to me right away to show me she was happy and free, and that life carries on. It's no such thing as death. So I was blessed to have several of those kinds of experiences. But I will say that my first experience with angels was in this vision, which was around 2014. Would you like me to talk about
Oh,
that?
absolutely, yes.
So I was all about communicating with departed loved ones and the God source and all of that. And then in 2014, I had been teaching a grief shifting workshop at a big retreat center, and I came home exhausted and sick. And I burned this incredibly high fever. I mean, I look back on it now and I think I'm so stubborn. Like Jean kept saying, I think we need to take you to the ER. And I'm like, no, 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 it's nothing. And then one night I left my body. I was held by angels, and I could tell that they were different from other beings I'd interacted with. They were so loving and sweet and filled with light, and they were holding me out in space, looking at the Earth globe the way we see it in this image, and showing me all these beams of light. And I said, what is this? And they said, you have to teach that the light is always winning on earth, no matter how dark things can seem in the moment. And they were saying, love always wins over hatred. And they were showing me the light traveling around planet Earth, filling in all the dark crevices. And it went on all night, Brian. They were just pouring this knowledge into me. And I woke up the next morning and I was so disoriented, and I was like, give me my laptop. I knew I had to start writing about the experience to understand it. And then now I look back on it and I know that it was the angels showing me that things were going to get tough on earth, and that I had to believe and teach that the light always wins no matter how it looks up close. And then here we are, COVID and all the other stuff that's going on. And I have
Yeah.
to keep going back to this vision to remember. And this is really what the angels are trying to teach us, that we are beings of light, that we are greater than any dark circumstance, any fear. And that when we recall that and stand in that light, then we transform the darkness.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so you've had, these losses when you were young, and a natural question to ask is like, why? Why did this happen? And even when someone else passes, we say, why did this happen to me? That, to lose a husband before you're not even 30, I had to imagine the question was, why? This isn't fair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, I spent 50% of my time really in pain and struggling with that grief, and then 50% of my time lifting into my spiritual awareness that was
Hmm.
growing and studying spiritual principle, going to ashrams, just doing everything I could. And then on a personal level, choosing terrible relationships with men because I was so brokenhearted and grief stricken that I couldn't see straight, you can almost say.
Hmm.
And also my family of origin, the great lesson I have with them is that their reaction was, well, you fell in love with him. It's your problem, pretty much. Like they never supported me in any way. So I
Hmm.
was really on my own journey of awakening and then at the same time, my own journey of devastation. And I think that's how we all have to walk through life on earth, especially grief. We have to feel that horrifying pain and then also spend whatever time we can seeking the spiritual perspective and aligning with that.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and thank you for saying that we realize it's not one or the other.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not, we're not, even though we are divine beings, we are here having a human experience.
That's right.
And there's a time for that mourning, there's a time for that pain
Yes.
and to feel that and to go through that. And it's, we were talking earlier, my daughter passed away, 10 years ago now, but I just lost a friend,
Right.
a couple of weeks ago. And even though when you feel like, you've got this thing kind of figured out and, everything is so planned and everything, it's still just devastating when it just
It
hits you like
does.
that.
Yes, absolutely. And, life on earth is a constant process of growth and reinvention. And I
Yeah.
always think the minute I think I've got it all figured out, it's oops, ready for the next big lesson.
Yeah.
And, a year ago at this time, Brian, as you know, I was suddenly diagnosed with colon cancer. That was such a big spiritual turning point because I'd been doing my work with clients, writing all my books, walking through the journey. And then suddenly I wasn't feeling good. And then all of a sudden I was in the hospital. And the next thing I know, they were saying, yes, advanced colon cancer. And I was like, no, that's the thing Paul died from. I
Yeah.
watched him suffer. I've eaten healthy every day of my life. I was even a health writer in my 30s. So
Hmm.
it was like, why, why? And so then I had to really turn to the angels because the angels had been showing up right before I got sick. An angel appeared in my bedroom. I was beginning to have these incredible conversations with angelic beings. And then I found myself in the hospital where the angels were saying things like, quit making a story about this, Sue. This is not like Paul. This is your journey. And they were just starting to fill me with my different wisdom, my higher self way of looking at it. And I was guided through it every step of the way once I trusted like that
Hmm.
and really surrendered my incredible fear all around it. And I had to go through major surgery and all of that. But every step of the way, I also felt the light calling me, the angels guiding me. And it was miraculous. The surgeon took out my entire ascending colon and like 50 lymph nodes, which I didn't even know you had in your
Right.
colon,
Right.
and came back and said, "You've been given a miracle. It has not spread." And I realized by looking inward that my next level of work was calling me and that
Hmm.
it was about the angels and how accessible they are to us, and that I really needed to share that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Angel Up because I think a lot of us, all of us, at some point feel alone.
Yeah.
And we can cry out to God source, we can cry out to the universe and say, why, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah.
Why am I here? And this idea that there is help that's readily available. I'm 64 years old. I only learned about this pretty recently. I never heard any of this stuff, growing up. I know some traditions like Catholics, they pray to saints and stuff like that, but we were never taught about like angels actually being here to help us.
Right. I know. Well, I grew up in the Catholic tradition, and the angels were like these big winged creatures,
Right.
sometimes with swords. So I never really was drawn to them.
Hmm.
But what I've learned is those are the human depictions of angels written by man, eons ago when the Bible was rewritten. And they really don't, Those images have nothing to do with the angelic beings that are around us every day that are simply saying, take a breath. Let me help you. They'll even help your heart. And my easiest way of connecting is you just say, angels, help me, heal me, lift me, love me. I've gone to bed at night just saying that over and over. Angels, help me, heal me, lift me, love me. And they just come right in and just start shifting you to a higher place where you feel like, okay, I can move through this. And I teach an angelic ministry class, where I teach people about how to quickly call for them and feel them and allow it and believe in it so that it can lift our frequency. Even when people are deep in their grief, crying out that devastating pain, we can still say, angels, help me, heal me, lift me, love me. And we feel the frequency shift. And as you know, Brian, when our frequency shifts up even just a little bit, we can more easily see and communicate with our departed loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
So the angels assist in that, And the other thing about the angels is you don't have to believe in any kind of religion. They don't need to take the form. Some people are very attached to the idea of the Archangel Michael and all of this. And what it means to me is that there are certain angels who do give us a protective energy. And over time, humans have named that, a certain kind of archangel. But you don't have to worry about those specifics. You can say, I need to feel protected, or I need to feel healed, or I need wisdom. And they are right here without question, without counsel, without advice, just loving on us.
Yeah, and you mentioned like Archangel Michael, and I know there's Gabriel and others, and I've heard some people say that even those archangels are archetypes, or
Right.
they're actually collectives as opposed to being
Right.
individuals. Is that true?
I have heard that too. And I also, one of the favorite things I've heard is that, the Archangel Michael comes from an original Aramaic term that meant energy of protection. And so over time, it became a human with a sword, a
Right,
human looking
right.
angel with a sword. We humanize deities all the time on earth,
Sure, right.
It's like, oh, we want to see God in the sky as a man,
Mhm.
Well, once you get beyond having to humanize everything in your understanding of spirituality, you can start experiencing it as it really is, which is the loving force of consciousness is the God source. And for example, we can think about in Star Wars when we were taught about the force, using the force. In many ways, that is such a spiritual, true principle. We are using the force of God's love to navigate this earth life. And all these beings who come to help us, they are beings of light. And we, Brian, this is the cool part. Once we begin to remember that, we remember that we are beings of light, that we're just temporarily wearing these human bodysuits and taking on these human personalities, but they're a temporary suit with a temporary story. That our goal here is to wake up and remember that we are part of the God source, that we are light, we are powerful beings here to shift consciousness into the light.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there. You know I'm a grief guide and author, but you may not know I'm a proud member of IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I've been a part of IANS for over 8 years, and I've even had the honor of presenting at some of their events. Now, whether you've had an NDE or simply curious about life after death, IANS can open your heart and your mind. Join us August 27th through 31st, just outside of Chicago, at the Hilton Oak Brook Hills for the IANS annual conference. It's a powerful 4-day gathering of nearly 1,000 people exploring consciousness, healing, and the continuation of life. You're going to hear from world-renowned speakers like Raymond Moody, Bruce Grayson, Diane Hennessy Powell, Mark Anthony, and Carolyn Mace. And don't miss our healing center with Reiki, massage, mediumship, and spiritual counseling. Visit conference.ians.org to register. Come, be informed, be inspired, and be among those who know we are more than our bodies and love never dies. Yeah, it's interesting you were talking about, it's humanizing things, and it seems like humans, we go to one extreme or the other. So we went to this god that was just like us, a
Right.
big white guy with a long beard sitting
Right.
on a throne, because they looked at kings and they said, well, kings are royalty, so God must be like that.
Right.
And then I remember when I was hearing about things like Buddhism and stuff, or hear about Taoism, then the source or whatever is totally impersonal,
Right.
and it's hard to imagine the impersonal being loving. So we struggle with, like, what is God? So what do you envision God or God source as being?
Well, I have literally spent my whole life studying every religion. I mean, when Paul died, I was going to a Buddhist ashram. I lived in a Hindu ashram. I was going to Unity of Boulder Church. I grew up Catholic. I have studied and immersed myself in all of
Mm-hmm.
these teachings. Um, I believe they each are limited, even though they all have beautiful principles in them. They each are limited by some fear-based dogma that humans seem to have to put into their understanding of the God source. Meaning in Buddhism, it's karma,
Yes,
oh, you
yes.
did that bad thing, so you got to come back a million more lifetimes. That is the same thing as the Christian understanding of hell, which is a false belief that if we make a sin that we're going to end up burning in hell. All of these are the limited human understanding of this greater universe where God is a force of loving consciousness that created this entire universe and is always running through us. But
Mm-hmm.
our human mind makes us doubt that. And when we're coming to earth, Brian, like when you and I were hanging out in the divine realms before we incarnated here, we were saying, well, I know if we go there, we have to have a human mind, which is going to distract us and confuse us, but it will help us survive there. We can't survive in that dense realm without one. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll need an ego too, because that'll keep us alive. And so we agreed to all that. And then we got down here and we get lost in that mind. And we think that that mind and those thoughts are us. And once we go, wait a minute, I am greater than my mind, I am greater than my thoughts. Now we begin to experience our soul's truth and our soul's wisdom. That's why I love things like numerology. They help you lift out of that human little small box that we put ourselves into.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's, you were talking about this earlier, like, we forget, we come here and the goal is to remember. And to me, this is where I've come down. It's almost like a game that we play with ourselves. It's like, let's go there and let's just forget everything. But it's like when you turn on a movie, though, it's kind of the same thing, right? You get all into the movie and you want to be into the movie. You want to have the experience. That's why you go to the movies.
Right.
So we do seem to like that thrill, but it can be really frustrating when we completely forget.
I've heard, Brian, and it really resonates as true to me, that souls incarnate in many different places, including other galaxies, but that Earth is highly respected and sought after for reincarnation purposes because you have so many hard emotions here and so many joyful, loving emotions on Earth. Souls come here to feel all of that emotional stuff and then, hopefully rise up through it to the love.
Hmm.
But that we've got to walk through the fear, the pain, the angst, the anger in order to get to that arc of soul learning where we're going. It's all part of the soup of learning here. And
Right.
I'm not going to deny those feelings, but when I can, I'm going to choose the compassion, the wisdom, and the higher frequencies of unconditional love. And if we do that once a day, maybe for a few minutes, we're doing good.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking about this, it reminds me, there's always they call it what, theodicy. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I've only ever read the word, but theodicy, this idea, like, if God is all loving and stuff, then how could the world be the way it is? But when you have the perspective that we're talking about, and I've come to the conclusion where it's like, the pain is not it's not a bug, it's a feature. We come
Right.
here to experience all of that, including losing your husband when you're not even 30.
Yeah. And you know, what's interesting, you just reminded me of when Paul crossed. I lived in Boulder, Colorado, and one of my dearest lifelong friends, Freddie, he would always take me in the summer to see the outdoor Colorado Shakespeare Festival that the University of Colorado would put on, an incredible event, still goes on. It's Shakespeare under the sky, almost every night in the summer, and international actors come to perform it. So the whole summer after Paul died, Fred and I were sitting in that beautiful outdoor theater watching all the great Shakespeare tragedies. And I do believe Shakespeare was an enlightened being. And he
Mm.
said, all the world is a stage, and we come here to play the different roles. He put it so beautifully, like one life you may play a villain, another you play the lover, because our souls are learning and expanding from the journey, not to just be withdrawn and think about it and not experience it, but to jump right in, put that costume on, and play that role out.
Yeah. It's funny when you said that, I got goosebumps when you talked about Shakespeare being an enlightened being. I was speaking with someone the other day, and I think so much truth comes through our art. And
Yes.
even in modern stuff, I was talking to this, there's a show called Severance that everybody loves. And I was like, there's a lot of Gnostic themes in Severance about, we forget who we are, and
Right.
we're like kind of we're stumbling through and trying to find this knowledge to
That's
free
right.
ourselves. And you mentioned Star Wars, so
Mhm.
and that's that human thing. And I tell people we do like adventure. You love to climb, right?
Oh,
I'm not a
right.
climber. I'm not an adventurous person, but people would say, well, why would I do this? It's like, why do people climb mountains?
Right. And here's a great thing. I used to have this quote memorized. I don't have it remembered anymore, but there's a quote by a French writer that says, why do we climb mountains? And the quote says, because we always remember the view from there. No matter how low we descend afterwards, we can remember the higher perspective of the
Hmm.
view from the top of the mountain.
Hmm.
And I realized in a spiritual way, that was why I was so drawn to all of those adventurous things, is that I wanted to stand on that
Right.
14,000-foot peak and look out at the top of the world,
Right.
because it reminded me on some level of our higher selves and our divine perspective. And
Yeah.
people who fly, people who jump out of airplanes, I think it's all the same. It's a spiritual quest.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as you were saying that, it's like, but it's also about the climb, because
Yes,
the reason why you feel the thrill when you're on the top of the mountain is because you know what you went through to get there. If someone just dropped you
exactly.
on the top of the mountain, it would be a beautiful view, but it wouldn't be the same thing.
You are so right. Oh my gosh. And I know that for me and my human journey, one of the things I was overcoming was, tremendous self-doubt, because I was so different from my family of origin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was so different from growing up in the Deep South, how everyone thought and felt and believed in the 50s, if you can imagine. And that differentness in me just came from an inner knowingness of what was right and wrong. That's why I think I had not incarnated much on earth. I've been told that I did come from the angelic realms, which is why earth life was so shocking to me growing
Mm,
up as a child. Because of that, I was, bullied and ostracized, and my family even didn't like me.
I understand.
Because I wasn't the Southern debutante I was supposed to be. And so that self-doubt, that drew me then to learn to be a Colorado outward bound mountaineering instructor, which then brought me to spiritual awakening and then brought me to Paul. I mean, it's all a beautiful journey of overcoming the pain that we've incorporated into the life path in order to wake up. And I know that I was desperately determined to wake up in this lifetime, and still am, because it was only a year ago I was going through that last little
Right.
thing. And I'm
Right.
just probably not the last little thing I'll go through, because I do want to be an ascended soul here helping others. And once we agree to that, boy, life is going to get us there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about the pain and the struggle, which I'm sure everybody can relate to. But we're here to talk today about Angel Up and what help we can get. So the book is a great, as I said earlier, it's a great thing that you mentioned. You can just pick it up and you can turn to anything. Talk about the way you structured the book, 'cause I think it's really important.
Yeah, I decided that everybody needed to kind of deal with an important spiritual concept like forgiveness or something, and then do a little guided meditation with it, and then do some automatic writing, an angel prompt, and then just go through the very practical steps of embodying that lesson.
Hmm.
And so the channeled messages were so wonderful. This is what I want everybody to do is just put your pen on the paper and just say, angels, show me what I need to know today. Tell me what to look for, and just start writing quickly. And I have many prompts like that in the book for people to use.
Hmm.
And then reflections in the study guide, get together with your friends and create a little angel group on Zoom or in person and go through those reflection questions together. What have angels always meant to me in the past? What is my experience now with them? What is my way of calling them in for help? And just discussing that with people, because the angels right now know that we are in a difficult time in our collective human selves on earth. So their job is more important than ever here. And we're each being called to shift our frequency up and try to remember the angelic parts of our nature
Hmm.
and help others who are suffering and in pain. And I tell my students, you can just go to a coffee shop and see somebody who looks like they're struggling and tell them how beautiful they are and just light them up. Or we do these guided meditations where we travel in my classes to the countries or the places where we know people are suffering, and we just pour unconditional love and angelic comfort to them and just let them feel that, instead of sending our worry and our angst the way we usually do as humans when something hard is happening on earth. And by sending that angelic presence to people who are struggling, we really can help those people feel loved on and nurtured and a little bit safer, a little bit more able to move through what they're going through. We can all do that. And that is really the purpose of the book, Angel Up, is that we all realize we're here to bring the light to the darkness.
Okay, so you said a couple things there. I want to make sure that I emphasize. One is that I love the fact that it's practical, like do, because reading something, we can read a book and it's not really going to change us. We have to do. I say that life is a practice. So
Right.
I've got things that I do every day that I've developed over the years. And this gives people some structure, some things to do. The other thing I love about what you said is as we're going through difficult times right now, and I'm thinking about Ukraine, I'm thinking about Gaza, it can be very easy to get discouraged and say, there's nothing I can do. Therefore, I'm not going to do anything and I'm just going to sit in misery. And you said, a lot of times we send our angst, we
Yes.
send our worry, we can send our love, and that does make an impact. And I don't think we realize that that's really important.
That's really true. And the amazing thing is when you get a group of people, this is why I'm really hoping that the Angel Up study guide is going to get people to be having group discussions and
Right.
practices. When you have a group of people all going into a little meditation and traveling to a place like Ukraine, just sending pure love and comfort and light, you just feel that people, it's almost like you see these people just going, oh, just kind of taking a breath, being able to feel a little less afraid. And we have the power to do that. We are divine beings.
Yeah.
In a group doing that, we can really change the world, Brian. And we've got to stop going, oh, that's terrible. What's happening over there? Oh, I'm angry about this or that. And I'm guilty of it all too.
Hmm.
And instead, sending our angelic wisdom and healing energy to help. And my goal is with Angel Up is that not only do we pick up the book when we're in our own pain and use it to lift us to a higher perspective, but that we bring it to the world in a very practical way.
Mhm.
I'll tell my students, your job this week is you're going into every situation aware that you are carrying an angelic presence that can help people who are struggling. And the joke is, I tell people, see if you can do that while you're driving in traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we can do that driving in traffic, just love on everybody, go, oh, that person who cut me off, they must be really struggling. Who knows? Perhaps their loved one just died last night. We never know what people are struggling with. But if we can bring that beautiful, loving heart to the situations, we're shifting it up.
Yeah. Well, again, it's that shift that we talked about, the fact that we are both human and divine, and it's really easy to get all caught up in our humanity. I heard an exercise that's really good. The person that cut you off in traffic that we get all angry with. Imagine it's a father that just found out his daughter was in an accident. She's at the hospital and he's trying to get to. If that were the case, you would not get angry at all, right? You would get out of
Right.
the way. But we assign bad motives to people. We're really, oh, that guy's a jerk. He just cut me off. And we don't know other people's stories.
Yeah.
So that trying to have that perspective, to develop that empathy,
Yeah.
and to realize that we are, angels. I've heard it one time, it's like the definition is a messenger from God,
Yes.
and we can all be messengers from God. We can all
Right.
we can all serve in that role. So if we imagine ourselves as like, what's, like you said, what can I do? How can I bring some more light into the world in my own little space, right? I may not be able to go to Ukraine or
Right.
go to Gaza, but I'm going to go to the grocery store later today. I could smile at, somebody in the grocery store.
And not only that, but we have to forgive ourselves from, I know many people can experience being angelic in the world and helping others. And then they'll tell me, oh, but then this bad thing happened at home and I fell into my negative self. Okay, that's fine. We are humans here. We have to forgive the part of us that gets pulled down into the earthly drama. That's why we're here, to experience that whole continuum. I went and taught at a big conference in Colorado, and I got to see my kids in early May, and I came home so happy from all of that, and then immediately fell into despair because our three Bengal cats had really gotten sick while we were gone. We had a cat sitter who unknowingly brought another cat into the house, and so I had to rise above that sense of betrayal and then rise above my fear that our beautiful beloved cats were so sick.
Hmm.
And my friends were going, okay, now it's time for you to angel up. And I was like, yep,
Yeah.
I've got to bring my angelic self to all of this while I'm also feeling my pain, my fear, my grief, my sense of betrayal. But I've got to override it as often as I can with the understanding that all of this is being handled by the angels, and the angels got my kitties through it. I
Yeah.
swear, Brian, I went to sleep some nights holding my cats and just going, angels, please, please, just bring them healing and help and light. I've lost so many beloved pets that I love over the years,
Hmm.
and I was just in that grief. But then that's who we are as humans. And we have to be able to forgive ourselves for that, because we're all just doing the best we can at every moment here. And I really believe that.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, before we started recording. I remember when I first heard that concept. It was a guy that I used to know. He said, no one ever knowingly does evil."
Right.
And it was a group thing. We're all like, of course they do, right? People, of course, people do evil all the time. I said, no one ever knowingly does evil. They believe what they're doing in their mind is justified. They believe what they're doing is the right thing.
Yeah.
And if we can carry that, then that can help us a long way toward having compassion for
Yeah.
people who just seem to be like totally screwing up.
Yeah. The worst thing humans do is really make up stories about other people. And I've felt it when people have made up stories about me. You can kind of feel that energy coming to you.
Yeah.
You think
Yeah.
like, what are they thinking about me? Because I mean, it's not whatever it is. It doesn't resonate with me. And then I've noticed I do the same thing. I'll look at somebody else and I'll make up a story about them.
Hmm.
If humans could drop that one trait, we would be able to have compassion for each other. We would be able to say, hey, tell me why you did this so I can understand it
Hmm.
rather than, I can't believe you did this. You're a terrible person. Those are such different energies. And the angels say, open your heart, listen with wisdom and compassion, and find your way to have
Hmm.
compassion, remembering that every soul here is walking their own very painful journey, no matter how it may look on the outside.
Yeah. Well, I won't go there with what I was going to say next about, because we were talking about some things before that we want to talk about right now. But
Right?
um, I did take a course many, many years ago that helped me like so much. I was in my 20s. It was called "What You Are Is Where You Were When."
Mm,
And I can't remember the name of the guy that came up with it, but the whole premise was we're all shaped by our past, by our history, by the stories, that's gone in our past. So when I look at people now, I try to imagine, where did they come from? Where did that idea originate with them?
yeah,
And to see people as more unskilled than evil, that
right.
this person has been hurt. Maybe they had a father that didn't love them, so they're
Right.
overcompensating for that. Maybe they were taught their whole lives that the only way to get ahead is to take from other people, so
Mhm.
they think that's just the way of the world, because if you don't take from them, they're going to take from you. And they're not doing it out of being evil. They're doing it out of, like, those are the rules of the game.
And that's what their soul came to learn. This is why I love my sacred numerology, and I even mention it in my Angel Up book as
Hmm.
well. Because when you look at somebody's path and you might say, okay, well, that person is really being abusive. And then you go look them up and you go, oh, they're on the eight path journey in this life. Now I can step back with forgiveness and understanding and say, oh, they're trying to learn the right use of power in this lifetime.
Hmm.
So, of course, they're going to fall on the side of abuse and fall on the side of giving away their power until their soul
No.
realizes it's about empowering higher self and empowering others. What a great way to see our journeys here. And that is what numerology gives us, is to
Hmm.
understand the walk of learning we're each going through.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow, I didn't know that. So, when it comes to where we are now, you mentioned that we're in a difficult place, and I think a lot of people, I think almost everybody would agree that things seem like we're on an edge. It feels like we're going to go one way or the other. We were talking earlier. We there are some who predict apocalypse, and there's some that predict we're about to, like, have the golden age. We're going to break through the golden age. What are the angels saying about that?
This light, this vision we just talked about, they made it very clear the light will always win, the love will always win. But we can't get caught up in the day-to-day details because that can look very bad and very dark. So we have to go to that longer view, that soul's perspective, being on top of the mountain, looking out at the world,
Hmm.
where we have to trust that this may take a year or two to really play out, where we're all feeling a little disconnected, a little conflicted, a little alone, a little anxious. But the light and the love is going to win and will win. But we also need to heal all the hatred, the darkness. So we're in that light and dark shifting place.
Hmm.
And it can be very scary, very confusing. And I know that I have felt all of that dissonance in my own personal life and in my relationships. And then I have to go back into holding it with the angels to know that it's all part of the process. And I have to keep coming back to compassion.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I'm not a history buff, or at least I wasn't in the past. The older I get, the more I get interested in it. And what I realize, if we look back through history, this is mankind, I think overall has always been an upward arc. We have more
Yes.
peace than we've ever had. We have more wealth than we've ever had. We have more health than we've ever had. We've got more of everything. but it's always two steps forward and one step back.
That's
There's
right.
always like the light has a victory. It's like Star Wars. The light
Yes.
has a victory, and then the dark has a victory. And it seems like we're going right back to where we were. But if we look
Oh,
at it overall, we never go all the way
right.
back.
Right. I had a wonderful history teacher in high school, and I think back about her all the time because she was a profound spiritual teacher, just cloaking it in
Hmm.
history. And she would say everything we studied, she'd go, "Do you see how the pendulum swings this way? And then it swings this way." And she would say, "This is how humans learn."
Hmm.
And she said, "But every time it swings, it gets a little bit smaller in the arc, of what
Oh,
extreme it's
yeah.
going to go to until it really comes to the center, which of course we aren't there yet. But I see that center as being us humans on Earth poised in our understanding that we are all souls here doing the best we can. And our voice is simply saying, how can I help? That means we have kind of come to our center here and our purpose for incarnating on Earth.
Yeah, I think that's really wise what your history teacher said is that it's I think about history when I was in high school. We learned dates and battles. There was a lot of battle stuff, and I'm like, I don't care about
Right.
that. But someone I listen to now, Heather Cox Richardson, I listen to now, and she just really makes for me she makes history interesting because she's drawing parallels between where we are now and where we've been in the past, and that can help to calm us, as
Yeah.
well. So when it comes to connecting with our angels and our loved ones and our guides and all these beings that are around us to help us, what can we look for in the physical realm where we live, right? What can we look for? How do they communicate with us?
Well, I hear them, but I also know that a lot of people struggle to hear them. So I tell people, get out your pen and paper and really start with writing, start with automatic writing. Because once we have that pen in the hand and we ask a question, beloved angels, show me what I need to know, or whatever your question is. And then let your hand start writing. And I say, let your hand write, not your mind, because my hand will start writing these big words. I can always tell when I'm channeling it in because my writing is kind of loose and free. It's not tight and controlled by my mind.
Hmm.
And I let that writing just keep pouring through me without editing it. And pretty soon you notice that you've got a couple of pages of writing and that you're hearing a voice of wisdom and love. As you go on, it gets louder and louder and louder. So that's one way. The other way is to sit in meditation and quiet the human mind. And we each have different ways we do that. I love repeating mantra, and I teach that in my books and in my classes where you repeat a Sanskrit phrase like Om Namah Shivaya and just keep repeating it as the mind calms, and then you open up to be able to hear and feel and see the angels. The other thing is, so many of my students report that a real human stepped into their life acting as an angel
Hmm.
intervening in something. And this is true. Angels will take a human form when necessary to step in and save us from something that we are not meant to experience. And I've had so many students tell me these stories that are just unbelievable like that. So be open to the person who quickly shows up in your life, gives you some sort of help and support, and then disappears. I
Hmm.
mean, instantaneously disappears. And then you're going, what was that? And I'll tell you this quick story of one of my clients that I love. She was young. She was 17. She was living in New York City. It was back in the 80s when New York was still a lot of crime and things happening. She was a student, and one night a friend invited her to dinner and it was far away and she had to take subways and everything. And then it was pouring rain and she got there, had dinner, and then it was like midnight and her friend said, okay, bye. And she was like, oh my God. And she walked out in the pouring rain on a Friday night in New York City, felt very threatened. It was a pretty sketchy neighborhood at the time. And she said, I've got to call a cab. I'm afraid to even walk to the subway
Hmm.
station. And on Friday night in the rain, you're not going to get a cab in Manhattan, especially way back in the 80s. And so she's sitting there in the rain, just terrified. And she goes, "Oh, if there are angels, I need one now." And all of a sudden, this taxi comes careening around the corner and stops like right in front of her. She gets in, and the cab driver says, "Well, wait a minute, where is that other person who was standing next to you who flagged me down?" I still get chills telling this story.
Wow. Wow.
And she started crying, going, "There was an angel next to me flagging
Hmm.
down this taxi." And I still get chills, so I know that story is real. And
Yeah.
I know that we've each had stories like that in our life, and they bring us so much pleasure to reflect on. So go back in your own lives and really think about, when did I have an angelic intervention and how did it make me feel?
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's probably a great way to end. So, remind people the name of the book, and I know the study guide's out with it too, and where people can find you.
The book is called Angel Up, The Angel's Guide to Ascension. And then my study guide is just called the Angel Up Study Guide. You can get both of them on Amazon. You can also go to my website, SueFrederick.com. And if you're interested in finding out your birth path number, like we talked about in numerology, I have a free soul path calculator on my website so anybody can figure out their number. And it's SueFrederick.com.
All right. So great. It was awesome to see you again.
Wonderful to talk to you again, Brian.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Hey there. If you like this episode, come on over and talk about it. Let me know what you liked. If you didn't like this episode, come on over and talk about it. Let me know what you didn't like. Go to grieftogrowth.com/community and look for Talk About the Podcast. I'll see you there.